Constructing your life is about much more than just building a bank account. Each week, join real estate entrepreneur and mindset coach Austin Linney as he interviews guests who are constructing their dream lives and impacting the world around them on a daily basis. If you're an entrepreneur or wanting to start a business, or you just want to hear motivating stories of how others have overcome the odds, you are in the right place. And now for your host, Austin Linney.
Guys, welcome back to Construct Your Life. This is Austin Linney here. I am honored to have my boy Chris back in the house. If you didn't know Chris, you didn't hear Chris's story, go back and listen, because I don't want to waste any time telling a story. But wholesaler, flipper, developer, but more importantly, a good fucking human. Good to see you, my man.
Hey, likewise. I'm right back at you, dude. I'm honored to be on here. So thank you.
You know what's interesting about these episodes? As much as they are for the guest and all of everybody that listens, thank you so much for listening. I almost like to do these for my friends to like have kind of a marker, and they're like, oh God, who was that guy? Like, yeah, well, it's probably like, I'd probably say it's like 6, maybe 8 months ago, maybe 10 months ago, give or take. Last time you were on here, and man, have things changed.
A lot between you and I.
So why don't you catch him up on what's going on new, and then we'll kind of see, we'll go from there.
For sure. So, dude, when we had our episode, I'd started off house flipping. I was primarily doing that. I can't remember if I was getting into the development. Do you remember?
I don't think so.
I don't think I was. So, dude, was just networking my ass off. Had a buddy of mine in college who works in the oil and gas industry. He had a business partner of his, high net worth individual, got me in touch with him. Long story short, they rolled the dice on a big project I brought to the table. So we bought a piece of land in South Bend, Indiana, Notre Dame's campus. And fast forward, we're building 27 luxury condos with 3 retail spaces on the bottom. And it's about a $20 million project. And this was 6 months into the business. So, dude, I started off, I think I'd flipped maybe 6 houses at that point in about 6 months. So pretty good start. And then the fucking development just took off. So brought in a consultant, got a badass team together, legal, architects, the whole 9 yards. And we're about to put a shovel in the ground here in the next probably 8 weeks. So that's been the bulk of what I've been doing. And then some wholesaling and flipping on the side. So I shouldn't say side, but.
How did you mentally accept the fact that you were here's a better question. How did you give yourself permission to attack that deal?
Dude, great question. So I went to the opposite end of the spectrum. What if I didn't do this? Right? I knew I was going to look back and be like, Chris, what the fuck are you doing? Why didn't you say yes? Sometimes you got to say yes and figure it out as you go. And that's where I give a ton of credit to the team and the people that, I brought on board, and just a lot of trust in myself on who I attract. Obviously I'm on a podcast with you. So, I'm doing something right here, but that's really what it was, man. What if I didn't say yes to this?
One of the great quotes I heard is like, all the mistakes that I've made are not from failures of opportunity. It's from indecision. And it's like the question that you have to ask yourself is, here's my theory. Once the mind expands on a number or a size of a project or whatever, right? I remember it like it was yesterday. I don't do multifamily. I'll be involved in that in some capacity, development and everything. But I went on a Jake. It was like the day that everything changed for me. We went on a Jake and Gino money mixer. And I just happened to be in Nashville. My buddy goes, look, come, I'll get you in for free. Like, I knew a lot of the guys, so nobody cared that I was there. So I went and we looked at all these things, and there was this guy there, and we were touring his property. And he had 297 units, and they closed on a 1,450 unit portfolio. And there's 50 people there, and everybody's nerding out. Well, what was the ROI? What was the numbers? Blah, 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 blah. And he literally goes, guys, stop. I had no idea what the fuck I was doing, but we just said, fuck it, we'll figure it out. My dad worked private equity. We talked it through, and then boom. And then he had closed another 3,000 units past that. And it was in that moment that I looked at that guy and I go, okay, he's no different than I. And he just figured it out. And I think when you make that transition, you get dangerous, because then it's like, now you're actually skating a different angle, which is how do I not say yes to everything either?
Right. Absolutely, dude. 100%. Because let's be real, as entrepreneurs, we have shiny object, right? there's opportunities coming our way, especially a guy like you who's doing these podcasts. You probably have so many opportunities, and I've experienced the same thing. And it's like, you have to learn what to say no to. But one point that I wanted to hit on when I was just listening to you talk, I think a lot of people get caught up in the weeds. And yes, there is legitimacy to that. You have to know your numbers. You have to make sure you're getting into the right deal, but you got to be careful that it's not allowing you to talk yourself out of taking action. And so many people get caught up with all these fucking acronyms and IRR and cash on cash and stuff like that. And it's like, is that what's holding you back? Right? Because I think it very well could be. I mean,
excuse, or is that the excuse that you're giving yourself?
Exactly, dude.
Here's my philosophy in life. We make things complicated to give ourselves an out.
Yes. 1,000%.
Because you know what's actually harder? Success.
You're right. Right.
It's harder because you're saying to yourself, God damn, I had this crazy fucking year. You want me to do this again? And then you're looking for the toxicity. Then you're looking for the self-sabotage. You're looking for all these traps and you're going, wait, can I just be happy? Can my partner love me? Can my kids be happy? Can we be making money? Can I love what I do? Like, is it just this easy? But in order to get there, there's a lot of self-discovery that has to happen.
Yes, absolutely. And you can get there faster by being more aggressive, at least for me. You know, I've honestly lost track of the flips. I've done over 20 at this point in the last 16 months. Have they all gone extremely well? No. I'm actually about to go through my first deal where I'm probably going to actually owe a little bit of money to my investor. But how much have I learned through going through all of that? And how much more money have I made by doing, let's just say for sake of example, out of those 20 flips, 10 went well, 5 went okay, and 5 were terrible. Well, I'd rather go through that than have 2 or 3 really good ones, because not only have I made some money, but I've learned a shit ton. So I'm just aggressive. I don't really fear failure. I don't fear losing money because you can just go make more of it kind of thing. But I'm also obviously not reckless at the same time. So it's like, it's calculated risk, right? So.
Mm-hmm. And, to highlight some of your story, like the calculated risk, the first one you took was on yourself when you left a 6-figure job.
Yep.
And, a lot of people change their life from addiction. A lot of people change their life for divorce and everything, but it wasn't like your life was bad. It wasn't like you weren't making money. It wasn't like you weren't happy. But if you could pinpoint, what were you missing, like, for yourself?
It was the fact that I knew I wasn't fulfilling my truest potential. And this is where I'm really, really thankful for modern day technology, where you can watch the Grant Cardones of the world out there crushing it, because I would look at guys like that and I would think, why not me? And so this dude's, paying $200,000 to fly his private jet to a city, and I'm making $200,000 a year. Right. And so I was like, yeah, like you said, my life wasn't bad. It just wasn't what I knew it could be. And I knew that in the back of my mind. And I think that's where spending time by yourself, going through self-discovery, and really showing up for yourself before anybody else is so important, because you're not going to realize those things. You're not going to be able to face your demons and get uncomfortable with yourself unless you do that. And that's what I did. And fortunately, most of my 20s, I lived alone. I was grinding sales, just really focusing on who I was, and going into my 30s, I was like, all right, now's the time. And that's why I could make that jump.
I had a coaching client this morning. He's a hell of a sales guy. And we're 6 weeks in, and he's like, hey man, like, we haven't learned anything about like real estate or anything like that. And I'm like, yeah, and we won't. Like when I met you, you were getting up at 8:00. You hadn't read a book in 2 years. Now you're getting up at 6 a.m. You're reading a book, your dreams are getting bigger. And I told him this morning. I said, we won't write your dreams. We won't write your goals really this year until you realize that the current goals that you see are just a past representation of who you thought you were. And so if we were to write your goals now, where we're getting in the routines, they would be still playing small. So let's sell some stuff, right? He's a killer sales guy. I said, let's have a couple more big sales. Let's get our health dialed in. Let's get our knowledge base up. And then let's write some goals.
Yes.
And he's like, it all just hit me now. Like, he's like, what I thought I was hiring you for, I wasn't even close. And he's like, we haven't even talked about Airbnb. I'm like, dude, that's easy. Let's get the foundation built right. And I think that's where a lot of these young guys, they don't understand it.
I agree. You got to dig deep, right? You got to go to the core first. And then, like you said, you can learn everything else. There's so much out there about whatever you want to do. So real estate included. So I love that. So
So when you get into development, which is something I'm getting into, I had a meeting the other day. This guy wants me to raise some money for him. What was easier getting into development than you thought standing from the outside?
The capital piece for sure. It's easier to raise a few $1 million than it is $100,000. And I say that because the people.
Dude, I just told a client yesterday and he goes, hold on, motherfucker. Walk me through this shit, please, because I don't understand this, but please go. This is so important.
Oh, dude. So and I alluded to this guy a lot because I love him, but Grant Cardone talked about be careful of the people in the middle that make 1 to 5 million a year, right? Because they're cheap asses. And I think the same can kind of play into trying to raise $100,000. You know, they want to know every little thing, and there's nothing wrong with that. I totally get it. These people aren't making crazy good money and they have every right to be that way. But when you start getting into the, you know, more of the wealthier, high net worth individuals, they get there because they take those risks and they don't hammer in on the details. And so raising the money was actually a lot easier than I thought. And then I think assembling the team came together relatively easy. And I honestly think that boils back to the fact that, you know, what you put into the universe, you get back. And I'm a good guy at heart. I want to see people win. I try to provide value. And so I would get on these calls and I tried to put this team together by showing as much value as I could, because I work for these people just as much as they work for me. So I think those were the two easiest pieces for me, is putting the team together and the capital.
What was harder than you thought?
Oh man, the intricacies. Dude, there's so much shit that goes into like schematic design and construction and, you know, working with the city and appeals and zoning and all that stuff. That's not too bad, but how much actually goes into building a building? It's unbelievable. Sewer and water storms and drains and, you know, power lines and working with the electrical companies, like all that kind of stuff. And then combined with all that stuff is just managing all of it, you know, because I'm working with, oh gosh, I can't even tell you how many people I work with, you know, all these ancillary people outside of the core team.
So I'm just curious, and I haven't met your partners. Like, why the hell would they take a chance on a guy who's green as ever to pull this off? I'm just curious. Have you ever broached the subject with them?
Because they're fucking dumb. No, just kidding. No, I'm kidding. I think it goes back to like what you're doing with your sales client, where you're teaching them mindset stuff. When I approached my now financial partner on this deal, I went to him and I said, hey, this isn't a house flip. This isn't a small deal, but this is not even close to the biggest deal that I want to do. Because in my mind, I just got done reading Donald Trump's book. The dude built half of New York City, $200 million projects. And I'm presenting a $20 million project. Actually, at the time, it was about 10 million. And so I just had it in my mind when I got on this call that it wasn't the biggest deal that I wanted to do. And I said that to my partner. I said, but this is a really good starting point, and I'll make sure that I have the right people in place. And I felt confident in that. And so I think he read that confidence and he looked at me and just thought, you know what, maybe he doesn't know everything, but this is a guy that's going to figure his shit out, because he's coming to me with some certainty.
Number one lesson that I've learned in the past 6 months, when we're courting these big money guys to do some development projects, is, you know, we spent, we spent 2 weeks putting together a pro forma. My business partner called me before the call 2 hours and was like, dude, we gotta cancel. Like, we're not ready. This is a waste of their time. And I was like, let me tell you something. There's no fucking chance I'm canceling this fucking meeting. We only get to talk to him once a month. And I said, let me dance. You're fine. Just leave it alone. And we get on the call. I take the fucking call in the RV in a parking lot at a restaurant, and we went an hour plus, and I was like, don't you want to see the pro forma? And they're like, no, we're good. And he said, we want to be in the Austin Linney business. Is that okay with you? And I said, yeah. And he goes, so if the numbers pencil out when we get down to the notes and bolts, would you be okay with us tripling the project? And I'm like, what the fuck is going on? And then like I got on the call with my partner afterwards, and he was like, all right. He's like, well, we're just in a different realm. And it's when you start getting in these bigger guys, it's really hard for everybody to wrap their head around. But if you ask me, Brandon Turner talks about this all the time. If you ask me to go raise 10 million, yeah, it would be hard, but I guarantee you I could do that easier. Like I had the guys on the podcast I released yesterday. Their first ever syndication, they raised 18 million and it was a fucking bloodbath. They said, oh, it was the worst thing I've ever done. Then the next time they raised 26 million in 2 days.
Yeah. See, love it.
And it's like, man, when you start hearing stories like that, you're like, dude, so like the question is like, what if, I'm not saying you got to be the principal, but what if you got on with a team and you saw it from the inside out and you said, I could do this. I can, and the thing is like what the problem is in development is no matter how many books you read, because there's not a lot, how many books you read on raising money, it really is those skills and those acts that have to be done in the moment, because the laws, the zoning, everything's changing. So if you read a book, it wouldn't even matter, to be honest with you.
Yep.
Yeah. And then the guy on the zoning commission's been doing it 50 fucking years. Yep. And he acts like, you don't understand what you're talking about. It's like, sorry, Bob, I don't, like this, I've been living and breathing this. Right. And so,
so speaking to that, you bring up so when we went to the Board of Appeals, right? Cause we wanted to go from 3 floors to 5, they shot us down because they felt like it was out of their wheelhouse to vote on what we were asking for. It was kind of political, but what got us from 3, because we're now building 4 stories. And it's funny because it's the same size building. We're just basically mitigating the rooftop a little bit, bringing it in. What got us to that point was the relationship we had with the city councilman who went to the mayor, and the city changed the norm from 3 to 4 floors 8 weeks after our meeting. And I truly believe, because like you said, there were some old school people in there. Maybe there was some backdoor stuff going on, but it was the relationship that drove that. And so I just think that, when you read these books about raising money and you talk to all these people, the first thing that they talk about is mindset, because these people understand at that level that money is everywhere, but good people aren't, and if a lot of people that think small minded, I think they get into bad decisions because they focus so much on the money that they don't realize who they're getting into business with. And so I think,
dude, I'm sitting in a meeting on Friday with a developer, one of the biggest ones in the South. And he said the number one lesson that he learned is he was moving too quickly to vet his business partners, and it wound up screwing him out of a couple million and kind of tarnishing his name a little bit. And now he's rebuilding it, paying everybody back out of his own pocket, because he's a good guy. And he's like, man, if I could do it over again, he's like, I would make my team real small. I would make sure the people I'm going, like, here's where I have an issue. Like, we're talking about a lot of money here. Like, we're talking about a lot of money, a lot of things on, you go sideways on one of these things. Like, you don't have to hit it out of the park, but you cannot lose their money.
Right.
And so like, I don't think people are, you're 100% right. They're focused too much on the money. Like, I am taking it in the chin left and right. Like, if I'm being so transparent right now, if I wanted to maximize my shit, I would have no partners in my coaching these companies. I would be making 300% more cash instead of paying my team. But that's not going to give me my name, my referral. Like, I met this girl who's mentoring us, 20 years in private equity and coaching and consulting, doesn't have a website, not on social media. Nobody knows her phone number. And the only reason she's got gig after gig after gig after gig after gig, referrals.
Yeah.
Referrals. Yeah. And so I would much rather create my career from that point of view. And you know what's interesting? My podcast producer was saying this morning, he's like, it's almost like you're running the anti-campaign. He's like, you're not, like, you're not going to do the, sorry guys, I apologize. You're not going to do the stupid dances on TikTok. You're not going to do this. You're not going to do that. And it's like, I'm saying that if I go deliver for my clients and I go do it over and over again, I'm available and I show up, I promise you that's just going to yield to more deals over and over again. Because the reason that your pipeline is not full is that because you're looking at short-term transactions.
Yes, I agree. 100% agree, man. And I was just talking to my buddy this last weekend when we were up in South Bend. And I was like, it's crazy how, because again, he's in the oil and gas industry. Dude, there are so many big hitters in the oil and gas industry that you have no way of contacting them. Right. But all these guys know each other because of this inner circle and referrals and et cetera. And the more noise and all these apps and all this TikTok shit that keeps coming out. Yeah, there are some big hitters on there, but I think the more your head is down and focused, the less they tend to kind of be on social media. It's like Lamborghini, right? They don't air commercials because they know their audience isn't watching TV.
Dude, I've heard it from people that I trust. I've had people confirm when you get into the C-suite, like the high net worth C-suite in Manhattan and in Boston, Chicago, if you're a coach and you're on social media, they'll fire you. Like they're like, hey, we don't want you on social media to either, talking about our business. We don't want like, hey, dude, you're here to coach us, and I mean, my dream has always been able to kind of find the balance between that and kind of impact, but be kind of a ghost. And that's what we do with our short-term rentals and stuff like that. And it's one of those things that, I mean, obviously it's the anti thing, but if you make money from running ads, like, cool. I'm playing with some ads right now so I can tell my clients about it and stuff. And we're just messing around with some stuff. But like, I would much rather just, this is my new thing with everybody. It's not that you're doing it's not that you're doing the wrong thing. It's that you might be doing all the right things. You just haven't done the right things long enough and more of a volume. Like more of a volume, like Gary Vee, dude, the motherfucker's posting like every 5 fucking minutes, like, tons. And so like he's hitting it right. And like Alex Ramosi was talking to Grant Cardone, and Grant was like, dude, it's not that you're not doing the right thing. He's like, I just post 50 more times more than you do in the week, and so like it's like you might just have to uptick your volume more than anything. It doesn't mean that you're not doing the right thing.
Right, I agree, and I think just to kind of like 30,000 foot view of everything you're talking about. I feel like this all boils back to the fact that if you put your head down, you do what you say you're going to do, you build your reputation, you're a good fucking person. It doesn't matter if you're on social media 4 times a day or if you're never on social media, that reputation is going to carry yourself. Because like you said, there's guys that are coaching C-suite executives in New York that aren't on social media, but then you have Grant Cardone, who has raised millions and millions and millions of dollars from social media. So there's no right or wrong. I just think be a good fucking human and do what you want to do. And just follow through on your word, And I was just talking to my consultant about that this last weekend. It's like, how have you built your brand so well in Chicago? And he's just like, my name, plain and simple. You get one name.
So there's a lot of metrics to success. There's a lot of, this house. There's a lot of, do I have this car? Do I travel? Like, do I have a plane? All these things. There's all these fucking metrics to what successful looks like. And last week or like 2 weeks ago, it just hit me. 100%. And I changed my metric. It'll be my metric for the rest of my life. It's as simple as that. And are people better when I leave the room?
Love it, dude.
That's it.
Yep.
You're not gonna fuck with me on that. You're not gonna mess with me on that. That's the goal.
Yep.
And so does that goal predicate and dictate everything else? You better believe it.
Right. Dude, 100%. I just saw somebody post a question yesterday on my Facebook and it said, do you think your self-worth is tied to your net worth? And I thought, I don't necessarily agree with that personally, because there might be somebody that makes $30,000 a year, but they could leave an impact on you that'll last forever. Right. And so to your point, I think if you can leave the room and make people feel better, how do you top that?
I love it. So one of the things that's really interesting, because you don't have enough going on, you like to live dangerously, is that your soon to be wife, you decided that it would be cool for her to graduate law school and work in the business too, and you have kids, and you're traveling, and you're doing all these things. How has that been to fold her into the real estate business?
Phenomenal, dude. She's kicking my ass. I mean, she came in here. I've always said she's smarter than me. She's more, she's more capable, and she comes in here and she's getting these deals under contract, and she's super smart and she's outgoing. I mean, she really has it all, man. So she's kicking my ass in a good way. But we've also had our issues, we've butted heads. We went out, was this 2 weekends ago, got an Airbnb up in the mountains, and I'm talking like 5 a.m. to 11 p.m. Both nights, just working on the business, working on our relationship, the kids, because we really had to get aligned because we were butting heads too much. We were kind of stepping over each other in the business. And so I'd be lying to you if I said it was perfect. It's been far from it. We've had a couple of really close encounters in our relationship where we've really had to step back and ask ourselves, but ultimately we came back together. We understand that we love each other, and we're kind of pushing each other in the wrong ways. And so we've really aligned on that. And, we still work through kinks. We're not perfect. I'm actually going to have her on my podcast as well, and we're going to talk about that. But dude, all in all, I'm so grateful for her. I really am. She holds it down in every way you could really think of.
You know what's different? And I'm going to send this to her afterwards so she can hear this too. And I'm comfortable saying it. You know what's interesting? She holds it down with a smile.
Yeah.
Okay. And wait, let me finish because
I'll let you finish.
You say that, you say that and it's just like an offhanded comment. But what I mean by that is she holds it down, still living life. Like she has big dreams. She has goals. She needs to be a mom. She needs to do this. She needs to crush this in business, but she doesn't take herself too seriously. And I think a lot of people hold it down, but they hold it down white knuckling. Yes. Like they're hanging on by, it's like at the end of the day, the guys that I have met that are the happiest and the most successful is just as much as they want it all, they'd be comfortable with leaving it all.
Right. Absolutely. And dude, I'm so happy you said that because that's what we've been doing in our relationship for the longest time. Dude, we both come from, childhood trauma. Everybody does, but I mean, especially like in intimate relationships, our parents, et cetera, et cetera. But we white knuckled our relationship for such a long time. And we're now having to undo a lot of those habits. And so it's interesting. We live our life like that in all these other ways, but we're now kind of starting to really learn to do that in our relationship. And it's extremely important, man.
Game changer. You'll be fucking unstoppable.
Yes.
And the thing is like, so I've been RVing for like 3 months now. It's interesting. I love it. And it was cold for a while. Now it's like warmer. And so like I work a really long day, 6 to 6, and then I'll get in the kayak and I'll go listen to some music and I'll kayak. And every time I hit the water, this same thought comes to my head, no matter what I've done all day. Like simple, like the sun's kind of going down. It's beautiful. The kayak costs like $150. I'm listening to some music and I'm thinking to myself, simple. And then I think to myself, as much as I'd be comfortable with just giving it all up, not building the companies, not coaching people, is that I have the choice and I choose to go out and chase these things.
Right.
And because I choose it and I'm not forced to it, that means I'm dangerous.
Yes.
And I think a lot of people live their life and think that they have a choice or they don't have a choice. And ultimately understanding that you have a choice. You don't need your bills that high. You don't need that car. You don't need that house. You don't need all those things. But when you get to choose all those things, and when you get to choose, like I have a client, his overhead is $100,000 a month for, his office, his team, his everything, and his multiple companies. And I told him, I said, if you're not happy, then give it up.
Right.
No, I mean, I'm happy then. Okay. I'm like, okay, then don't fucking sit here and complain to me. Like you like it because you're chasing your dreams and like, and then he figured out a way to like create this revenue source where it paid for that thing. And then like, boom, he's exploded. But all I'm saying is like, be careful if you haven't set your vision out properly, that you're kind of constructing kind of a house of cards. Is what I'm saying. Like we just came up with our biggest business idea yet. This is the umbrella behind everything. It's very thought out, but this is a 50-year business plan, like 50-year business plan that we spent 2 months putting together. Right. That's very vetted. Now, when we got it, everybody said, okay, enough with that shit. What's the now goal? What's the 8-month goal? And so now we're focusing on the 8-month goal, but we know exactly where we're headed.
Right.
And so if we built the 8-month goal and didn't know where the 50-year goal was, the 8-month goal doesn't even matter.
Yep.
And I don't think enough people have spent time on that.
100% agree. I completely agree. And I think that's why, going back to the medical sales days, making good money, I was hanging my hat on the wrong definition of success, right? My heart and my soul, like what I knew success to be, wasn't aligned with how I was viewing my definition of success. And so that's why I was able to leave the job. And it didn't really take me long. I mean, I was kind of fighting it for a little while, but it really didn't take me long because I'm like, it doesn't determine my happiness. My biggest thing was I want to be able to provide for my kids and my family. And that really boils back to self-confidence, and I'm going to make it work in my new journey. And so, yeah, man, I think it's extremely important. And we just did that a couple of weeks ago at that Airbnb. We have our quarterly goal, we have our 1-year goal, our 2-year goal, our 5-year goal, and our 10-year goal. I don't have a 50. I need to get a 50, but we have the macro, the meso, and the micro goals for sure.
No, and one of the reasons that people don't do that is because they don't want to be tied to it. I'm like, guys, that like it can all change, but it can, at
Exactly.
least gives you something to step into, you know?
Yes. Yeah. You
Yeah.
gotta, exactly. Yeah. It's okay to change your path, but you gotta have a path to begin with. Right.
Mm-hmm.
So
So, and you're embarking on something that you kind of wrestle with for a long time. I think it's probably around the corner to debut, and you're gonna release a podcast, right?
releasing a motherfucking podcast. Finally.
So talk to us about that journey, man.
Absolutely. So, for those of you first time listening, my company is called Network Ventures. And so I'm coming out with a podcast called Network Nation, and it's a personal professional development podcast. And, at first I was going to go super niche, talk about, real estate specific, but dude, this is my life, and real estate isn't just my life, right? I have, like you said, kids, fiance, sports bike, sports car. So hobbies, all this different stuff, traveling. And so it's really just around everything that I've been through and just telling my story, and then having people like yourself on the show to tell their story, and really just be another person out there that can help try to inspire people in my own way. And so that's really what it's about, is personal and professional development.
A lot of people that start a podcast, they have, statements as if, I don't know how I'm going to get people on, who's going to listen, what for you, if any of those things come up, what has been kind of like the narrative in your head as you get ready to release one?
Dude, great question. You've helped with this a ton. You're like, motherfucker, get your podcast going. Stop being a bitch. I was like, all right, I know. But to answer your question, if I can just help one person, like you said, if I can leave the room and help one person, that's really what it's about. And I'll give you a quick example. I had a buddy of mine who was in medical sales, and he kept messaging me right after I left my job. And he kept asking me about, like, how's it going? The wholesaling, I really want to leave. And I kept telling him, like, oh man, you got to do it. We're kind of going back and forth. Had a job on the line for, I think, 350 a year. And finally it got to the point where I said, dude, look, you keep messaging me, asking me the same thing. At some point you got to pull the trigger, because you're eating yourself alive at this point. Long story short, he left, he pulled the trigger. He just messaged me. He said, hey, just landed my first 2 wholesale deals, 175,000 between both deals. Dude. And he goes, you're the one I need to thank. And I was, dude, it gives me chills right now saying it. And I messaged him back and I said, no, man, I'm glad I could help, but you're the one that made this decision. So dude, if one person listens to my episode, I don't give a shit how many views I have. Yeah, I'd love to have 1 million, but if I can help one person, I'm doing a disservice if I don't do the podcast, put it that way.
Dude, I can picture that guy's smile in my face. This is something super important. Every time somebody comes to work for me, they say, oh, thank you. And I'm like, no, not a chance. Here's the difference. You, with your behavior and your consistency and who you are as a person, created the opportunity. Yep. I'm not giving you one, but you got to earn it every day.
Right.
And so this is what I tell my business partners all the time. I wear the badge of honor to be your business partner every day, and I'm going to prove it like we're in a new business partnership every day.
I love it. Absolutely.
And if you have that mentality, that's the type of business partner you want.
Oh, 100%. 100%. We're about to be.
I know.
Gosh,
don't get me started.
It was our deal. I think we spent.
I talked about this. No, I talked about this 7 times this week. I was like, all you fuckheads are fucking trying to create fucking waterfalls and bullshit. I was shopping for groceries and we're working on $1 million property, negotiating for 3 minutes.
Dude, that's it. It was literally 3 minutes. I was like, oh, that's cool. To no surprise though, that's our character, man. Because like we had said on that call, we know that if we do this deal and it works out, great, we just keep going. If something happens where one of us plays a lesser or a more important role, dude, we just revamp it. It's not a big deal.
It's not a big deal. And ultimately, look, anybody that's getting started out there in the space, right? If you're gonna take it. You're going to take a lesser percentage at the beginning because they're asking for your track record. They're asking for your proven. And the thing is like, you're sitting over here and you're saying, well, I'm doing more here. And blah, blah. And like, I get all that. One of the greatest lessons I ever heard from this guy who's done like 2,000 transactions. is he said that all you integrator or all you visionaries are pussies. And I'm like, what? And he's like, you're sitting here, and look, this is his opinion, not mine, but I'm going to make a point around it. He said, you're giving the integrator 50% of your business when the integrator doesn't drive business. He's like, I'm out there driving business, creating deals. And what he's saying is like, could you pay somebody $300,000 a year to like manage your ops in your company? And he's like, the reason that you make him 50% partner is that you're just carrying what you bring to the table. And all he's saying, dude, pay you a partner if the partner's bringing the weight. But what he's saying is we're so quick to just say like, oh yeah, come. But it's like, have you like really talked to the partner about the values? Like, have you really talked about what they want out of life? Like, and everybody's thing can change. But like, let me tell you something. Everybody I'm in business with, we all had the same mission. Like literally you could take their 10-year mission out and put my name next to it, and the words are exactly the same. Right. And I don't think, enough people have spent time and like got to know people and got to know how they are and like, hey, what do you care about? And like, because anybody can behave a certain way for a couple months. Mm-hmm. Like, are they going to constantly do it over and over again? And what I have an issue with, just had a really rough situation with a previous partnership that's going to end soon. And it's taken care of. But like, I really thought I knew these people. Like I really did. Like but they stood for it, everything. And come to find out, not so much. And right. It's like, man, like I'm pretty good at this. But then I made this promise to myself. This is a very real argument I have with myself, because once this happened, and this is not the first time it's happened, I said to myself, you know what? I'm not going to trust anybody anymore. Like, I'm not going to trust anybody. And I said, you know what? Wait, hold on. Has more positive things come from me giving people the benefit of the doubt?
Right.
Well, of course. Okay. Then I'm comfortable with my heart being broken by giving people the benefit of the doubt. And I'm just going to roll like that. And no, emotionally, that's going to happen from time to time. But I believe that more positive is going to come from it than negative. Yep. And so far, I'm pretty right on that.
Yep. I love it, man. Because how many opportunities would you have prevented if you would have just been like, you know what, I'm done. Not trusting anybody again. You're shutting off so many other avenues and doors that could be open right in front of you.
On the back of that, tell everybody what you do.
Right.
You have no idea, dude. Like, dude, seriously, this guy, the neighbor at my RV park, gave me his phone number yesterday. They left. They went back to Colorado. He was the number one builder on the West Coast for 30 years.
Oh, shit.
And he built 400 dental offices and RV parks. And he's like, hey, man, anytime you need to ask me a question about development, just shoot me a text.
Awesome. Dude, I love it. And I think that's where we talked about earlier, like integrating what you do with your life, constantly being on. And yeah, you could say selling, but just constantly selling yourself. You know what I mean?
Yes, agreed. Constantly selling yourself, but constantly bought into who you are as a person.
Right. Yes.
Yeah. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, dude, here's the thing. This is what I never understood. This is my fucking God. I wish I was a fucking musician sometimes. If I was a musician, you would have to shut me the fuck up. Like I would be at dinner playing. Like if I was Bruno Mars, I'd just be like singing everywhere I went. Like you would know that I'm a fucking singer. And I've never understood. Like I get it. They have a concert, you pay for it. But dude, I would be on the street corner just like fiddling, singing, like. And so maybe that's the same way I am with what I do. I love what I do.
Dude, that's it. I just got done reading Rick Ross's book. It's actually a good read. He said the same thing. He's like, dude, I'll do a show anytime, anywhere. Private birthday parties, corporate events, in front of millions of people in an arena.
Danny Trejo. You know the actor?
No.
So Danny Trejo, the joke is he's been in like 500 fucking movies. He goes, dude, I used to be a gangbanger. He's like, I should have died. He's like, I'm just so happy I'm a damn movie. He's like, he'll literally do any fucking movie.
Yep.
Like he's just like, and it's like, do you love what you do that much that you're like, hey man, let's and all the time, like I have people ask me like, why are you doing this? And I'm like, dude, just don't ask questions. Like, I just love helping people. And so
Right.
you have to get out there, you have to promote yourself and stuff like that. So if people
Yep.
want to find out about the podcast, they want to follow you, what you're doing, how would they do that?
Yeah, for sure. So CGorm12. So CGORM12 is my personal Instagram. Network Ventures Group is my Instagram handle for the company. And then Network Nation, it's going to be available on Spotify, pretty much all the platforms here over the next, I'd say like 3 to 4 weeks. So on the conservative side.
Probably longer.
Dick.
Guys, if you like, that was just me kidding them. So if you like this episode, guys, send it out to your friends. We'll see you next time.
Thank you for listening to Construct Your Life with Austin Linney. If you enjoyed this episode, be sure to rate, review, subscribe, and pay it forward by sharing with a friend. Most importantly, take this opportunity to start constructing your life by taking immediate action on what you learned. For show notes, resources, and more information on one-on-one coaching with Austin, visit constructyourlifepodcast.com.